Pay them more money simply to play their music. Don't let radio go silent. Text LOCAL to 52886 and tell Congress to protect local radio stations. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
You're listening to The Morning Show, streamed by clicking the WHOW live icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. My guest in studio today is Tony Kirkman. He is the executive director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, and coverage of The Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Morning, Tony. How you doing, man?
I'm well. How are you, Seth?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking, and thanks for making time for us as always.
Anytime.
It's good to have you in. Let's dive into, I know that in facilities like the Piatt County Mental Health Center, I know Encore is kind of in a similar position here in DeWitt County. Masking really hasn't gone away. And for some, obviously so. Just talk a little bit about what has changed in the last maybe 2 months at your facility. Maybe some of the mandates and the guidelines that you're getting. What's been going on with you lately?
Yeah. So, sadly, masking has been here for quite some time. I know the governor's orders have lifted mask usage in many of the indoor locations. And then as we're reading on the news right now, we're seeing that CDC has changed the requirements. And so TSA has now removed those mandates for planes, trains, and buses. Mm-hmm. But sadly, IDPH continues to look at facilities like ours that are deemed in this definition as a congregate setting, and has said that mask usage should be required. The nice part about it is that there's been a recent release of a news bulletin, according to the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and our administration's looking at it, that some of the language has slid to required to highly recommend. And so it's kind of like having an attorney look over your language to say, hey, so it says should, it doesn't say must. And so the biggest thing that we're trying to do is make a decision, one that's obviously falls within the parameters of our funders, but more important than that is making sure that we're taking every step in the way to protecting our consumers, our visitors, and our staff's well-being. So as of right now, we're continue of mask usage for our developmental service side. And then the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, they just call it CMS, has declared community mental health centers as a healthcare clinic. And by that definition, it says that healthcare clinics must maintain mask usage.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It's kind of where we're at right now.
So in terms of the status of your facility, folks are still masking when they come in and all of that. You were telling me, though, that that's really created a lot of barriers for folks seeking treatment. Is it as simple as just, not seeing facial expressions when someone's in front of a therapist? Is it because there's a mask mandate, people don't want to come in for service? What are you finding there?
I think it's all over the board, is that no matter what we do, you're going to have people that just say, as long as coronavirus is present, we should stay masked up. Mm-hmm. Then you're going to have another, as the pendulum swings, another line of thought. But I'll tell you, in real lifetime, of what we're seeing is, yes, we know that 75% of communication is nonverbal. And so when you cover 2/3 of our faces, which are extremely expressive, it makes it very, very difficult for the clinicians to be able to see slight inflections. Maybe, if somebody's, biting their bottom lip could show anxiety or tension or something like that. As well as, I think, for the patient that is receiving mental health services, as they're sharing difficult or maybe even joyful news, is to not be able to see that facial reciprocation. Yeah. So it becomes quite difficult. And so I think that becomes a limit to the services, and not throwing it away entirely, but it makes it more difficult for both the sender and the receiver. Honestly, too, is that we've now been 45 days outside of the mask executive order, is that mask usage sadly is becoming a barrier to treatment for some of our individuals that feel very strongly about not using masks or haven't used masks. And so I'll just give you one example that I saw last week. Was an individual that hadn't had to wear a mask for a while, went in for his therapy with a drug and alcohol counselor, and had to discontinue that service halfway through just because they were having difficulty breathing, and that difficulty breathing caused anxiety symptoms to rise. And so they just had to go outside and take a time out.
Sure. So is there anything you're going to do? Is there anything you're pushing? Talk a little bit about maybe proactivity on your end of things.
Well, I want to give a huge shout out to the DeWitt Piatt Bi-County Health Department. Those guys and gals over there do a phenomenal job, and they're kind of my go-to of what's the state of Illinois doing, what's the latest movement, as well as they have been amazing partners, as it has been with the delivery and the supply of our PPE throughout the last 2.5 years. So we're talking to them. We're a part of a couple behavioral health trades, like the Illinois Association of Behavioral Health, that has both legislators and lobbyists that they partner with. And then I have a pretty strong network of collaborators that run mental health centers as far west as Quincy and as far east as Paxton, Clark Edgar County, and just kind of saying, what are you guys doing? What do you have access to? Because at this point, a wise person seeks counsel, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Sure. So is there any chance that you would go against the grain and unmask folks, make it a voluntary thing? And would you risk funding if that was something you decided to do? How do you feel about those things, Tony?
Well, I think of the fact of, as it stands right now, the last ruling I saw was that every infraction, which is each individual, can be fined $14,000 per incident per day.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, so it doesn't take very long. If I have 45 staff and I tell them peel off your mask, and we serve 65 individuals with disabilities, and roughly we're seeing around 40 individuals on our mental health side every single day, that price tag gets pretty wide.
Sure.
And so I think that at this point...
Now, are there people actually monitoring those things?
At any time, we can have an audit where the Department of Public Health, the Bureau of Accreditation, Licensing, and Certification, or Bureau of Quality Management, they will not, and they have not given notice, and they can just walk in and with a clipboard and say, show me everything, and they'll just start hitting us with tags.
I see.
So one of the lines of thoughts was, well, you shouldn't let government tell you what to do, and you should fight for your rights. And I'm a libertarian at heart, and I agree with that. I think we should have choice, but we also have to think of the long game here. And if we receive all of those tags and all of those fines, ultimately what that does is shut us down, thus leading to a reduction of services, essential services for our community.
So the risk isn't worth the reward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, Tony Kirkman is the executive director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, our guest in studio here for this morning. How do you overcome, you talked about the barriers, folks that the gentleman that was in for, drug and alcohol counseling, and he had to cut that off because of an anxiety attack. How do you still reach those people? Is telehealth as effective as someone coming in? Is that even an option anymore? How do you reach those people?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of cool things that we can do. So one of the alternatives is telemedicine. So we can say, hey, in the future, if you want to do something over a secured line through a Zoom HIPAA compliant portal, we can do that. If you want to pick up the phone, we can do that. We also have the capability, and I'm not for sure if we used it in this case or not, but we have the capability of saying, why don't you check in with our receptionist? We'll hand you an iPad, and you go sit in your car, and you can do the session right there with a therapist. And again, I know that our therapists are really, really client-centered. So we can even just say, let's go on a walk here on our grounds and just kind of talk things through.
Can your counselors leave your facility and meet with them? I'm sure in a home is unethical, but in a public space or something like that, is that an option?
We have done that before. Yeah. As long as it's obviously the counselor and the counselee agree. And we can ensure that there is some privacy and some confidentiality. Yeah, we've been able to do that as well. We've had people that have experienced grief or trauma, and as part of that, we've went which is called exposure therapy. We've went to those sites and kind of done some stress reduction stuff. So yeah, it's that's why we're called a community mental health center, is because we respond to community needs.
Is there anything else along the lines of the masking stuff, Tony, you want to talk about this morning?
I think the biggest thing that really drives me up at night is once again, as I said, the mask usage appears to be a barrier to treatment. If we're supposed to be reducing stigma, improving access, and really being client specific, I understand if we were providing, physical medical care, we would be considered a health clinic. I think there just needs to be a different delineation of our classification, because I want whoever wants help to get help however they see fit, as long as it's healthy. My personal opinion is, if the state of Illinois is saying that 600 young people, and obviously I understand their health's a little bit more, they're not as compromised, but if they can come from wherever they're coming from this weekend and congregate into a smaller facility, I think a one-on-one does not have the same exposure of risk.
Sure. Very good. How do folks learn more about Piatt County Mental Health Center?
Yeah, give us a call, 217-762-5371, or check us out online, piattmhc.org.
Tony Kirkman is the executive director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, my guest in studio this morning. And the morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. More to come on the morning show.
New trucks and SUVs are coming here at Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton. This is Scott Baum. Yes, we have new inventory arriving, and you can see what will arrive right on our website. Just click on the pre-order and reserve tab. From there, you'll find vehicles in transit and vehicles in production. Or just call our sales staff and we'll help. Find Silverados, Equinoxes, Blazers, including Tahoes and Suburbans, as well as our complete Buick line of SUVs. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
Attention Republicans, stand by for important election information. Oh, Democrats can listen too, I guess. But they probably won't, because if you're still a Democrat, you're clearly not paying attention. Anyway, in the Republican primary for Congress, President Trump has endorsed conservative Mary Miller. Repeat, Mary Miller is the official Trump choice for Congress. We like repeating it to annoy any Democrats who are still listening. Well, the point is, Mary Miller backs term limits. She's strong on election integrity. And Mary Miller will stand up to AOC and the green energy socialists that are just killing us at the gas pump. Conservative Mary Miller for Congress, the Trump Republican choice. And in case Joe Biden hears this, we now repeat our message in a way he can understand. Trump endorsed Mary Miller. Paid for by Club for Growth Action, clubforgrowthaction.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Club for Growth Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
ServPro of Piatt, DeWitt counties is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of WHOW Clinton Maroon Player of the Game. Announced at the end of every Maroon sports broadcast, our WHOW announcing staff will select that night's WHOW ServPro Piatt, DeWitt counties Clinton Maroon Player of the Game, whose play will be highlighted in each WHOW Maroon postgame broadcast, and that player receives a certificate. ServPro of Piatt, DeWitt counties make it like it never happened. Find out their services by clicking their icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
You're listening to The Morning Show, streamed by clicking the WHOW live icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. My guest in studio, Tony Kirkman, is the executive director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center. And Tony, you were telling me in the break that you finally have a hire that is on your staff now. You've been looking forward to this for some time. What's going on here?
Yeah, so we received a grant from the Substance Use Prevention and Recovery Program to land, which is known as a ROSC Council, a recovery-oriented system of care. The grant, in the broadest terms, provides recovery support services or case management, case consultation services for individuals in any stage of recovery, from active addiction to long-term maintenance. And so We received that grant in early September, and we made our hire last month. In that interim, I have been the interim Ross coordinator.
wow.
So I got a lot of things going on. So I'm really glad to move that off my plate. Yeah, we hired a new case manager. She's going to do a fantastic job. She's already looking at running a coalition, talking about putting together like monthly yoga appointments in a local park, trying to put a support group down in southern Piatt County in the Piatt, Cerro Gordo area, which we're really, really excited about, as well as trying to come alongside our addiction counselor and say, what additional supports can we provide? What are some additional barriers to maintaining sobriety? Is it helping you write a resume, getting you to a medical appointment, trying to figure out this transportation issue that we got, or maybe it's just some simple budgeting. One of the things, as I was telling you many months ago, is it's very important in recovery to have hope. And I was really concerned about that whenever I would see people coming in and receiving 1 hour of therapy every single week. And I wondered what happened for the other 6 days. We're going to be able to space that out and say, if you would like, we can have somebody come and hang out with you, visit with you, and keep you moving on this path of recovery. So excited about that, as well as trying to pull in some of the local businesses and say, hey, we think that alcohol usage within its healthy limits is legal and permissible. But for those that have some difficulties with that, what can we do as a community to come alongside those individuals to help them in their journey?
Yeah, and there's probably a lot more of that than probably a lot of people are willing to recognize or would recognize.
Absolutely. I think one of the other nice things that we have is that we have several people in the community that are in the business sector, as well as in law enforcement, courts, health, probation, that realize we can't arrest our way out of this. So one of our biggest supporters is our local sheriff. Sheriff Vogelzang does a fantastic job of attending our collaboration meetings, and really is trying to say, all right, in the hypothetical situation that we sadly have to arrest an individual, how do we make sure that they continue to receive their services even if they're incarcerated? So it's those compassionate views about understanding that just putting people in jail is not the treatment for those in addiction recovery. And we've got a lot of partners like that.
Will this person have to recruit folks to go alongside those individuals in their journeys? If I remember right, that was kind of part of this program, right? Is having someone to be alongside someone in recovery, correct?
Absolutely. So recovery should never be done alone. There's strength in numbers. And so that's yet another thing that we're trying to do is, what are some people that are your safety net, your recovery safety net? And then sadly too is, what are some places that are triggering you towards unhealthy behaviors? Because I have found in people's recovery journey is that you have people that want the best for you and want to see you recover, but that also means sadly sometimes leaving a social group of people that choose not to address their issues of addiction. And so I heard this amazing statement that was delivered in a training of mine, and I really kind of apply it to all types of social groups. But in this context, it was talking about the mindset of poverty. And they said there's only two things that pull you out of poverty. One is education, and the second one was outside forces pulling at you harder than the inside forces trying to keep you.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, that's beautiful. I think it's the same thing about recovery. Is educating you, learning out, what are some possibly mental health issues that you're trying to cope with or self-medicate with, and then what are those outside forces pulling you towards recovery?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So look forward to that. Anything else on that specialist that you've got in now, Tony?
No, I would just say if you're interested, give us a call. It is the ROSC program, ROSC. Ask for me, ask for our Ross coordinator. We'd love to help you because we believe that recovery should be done in the community.
Sounds like a lot of good things going on with that.
Yes,
so
sir.
Look forward to it. Tony, in our final minute and a half here or so, maybe we could dive in deeper into this another time. But you were telling me that one thing that's been on your radar lately is trauma recovery for first responders and some of the things they go through and they see. What's going on here in your mind?
So I'm a dork. I read way too much books. One of the books that I've recently read is called The Body Keeps the Score, and it talks about how trauma exposure impacts us at a cellular level. I think of our friends that are first responders that have to deal with things that you and I would never see in our day-to-day lives, and trying to figure out how we can come alongside first responders to allow them to process their trauma, to give them emotional support, to help emotional literacy. It's kind of the lifelong question of who helps the helpers. And so that's something I'm kind of looking at. Hopefully I can put some resources together, and I've got a few contacts in the local Decatur area that I'm working with. So
cool.
Things to come.
Well, we look forward to more conversation on that. How do folks learn more about the Piatt County Mental Health Center, Tony?
Yeah, check us out online, piattmhc.org, or call us 217-762-5371.
Tony Kirkman, Executive Director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, is my guest in studio. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Network news on the way on the WHOW Morning Show, again streaming to Facebook and YouTube, and of course live online all the time at DeWittDailyNews.com.